Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. President Trump will deliver remarks at the Department of Justice tomorrow focused on, quote, law and order. I'll have a little bit more on that in a second. I want to bring in our reporter panel, Dave Weigel, who covers politics for Semafor, and Deepa Shivaram, White House correspondent for NPR. So, law and order. Dave, Deepa, you know this, is a long-standing chestnut for Republicans. How do I know that? I collect old magazines. I have a magazine in my office, Life magazine, dated 1968. There was a presidential election that year. The entire cover story focused on Republicans and law and order. So it's a long-standing thing. It's going to be a little bit different tomorrow because it's not just going to be that. It's going to be about Trump saying, I was badgered, harassed by the old Justice Department. I'm changing it. But there are those who fear already, Dave, that there is a revenge component to those changes.
Well, there is an unprecedented level of executive interference in law firms. You saw this with the executive order punishing Perkins Coie, which they're already in court. They're arguing, I think persuasively, that
the law firm.
Yes, the law firm, that they've immediately been harmed by this, and that this is not unexpected necessarily with Donald Trump. He often, as a private citizen, would file lawsuits that didn't look like they had a chance, but were enough to tie somebody up and harm their reputation. This is the force of the federal government going into that. And this is just 2 months in. A lot of people around the country, environmental organizations, law firms, anyone who crossed him or crossed MAGA in any way is looking at the next 3+ years and saying we might have to defend ourselves against DOJ.
I mean, this is just following up on something that Trump said himself on the campaign, right? He was going to go after his political enemies, people who have wronged him. He's already started in the DOJ, going after people, moving them around in the department, demoting them, getting rid of them in the DOJ, people who worked on the January 6th cases, anyone who investigated him at all
even
for
if
the
that was
number
their
of
job.
cases that
Not
he
that they
had.
set it in motion. They were just asked to do it as part of their job.
Absolutely. And these are, civil servants. These are lawyers who work on behalf of the U.S. government who are being penalized by this president because he perceives them as going after him and personally attacking him. There's been a long-standing tradition, I would say, of, a separation between the White House and the Department of Justice, letting the DOJ do their jobs, not in this administration.
And it will even be unusual for the president to be there.
Right.
Yes, that too.
to put the political aura of the White House right inside the Justice Department.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't have to put money in a jar whenever we say unprecedented, because that's going to keep that's going to keep happening. But you set it up well. That there are people who thought they would have careers in law enforcement,
federal law enforcement, right?
And they're leaving for a number of reasons. These reasons, demotions. This is happening in D.C. too, where people who were part of the January 6th prosecutions have been demoted, even if they won those cases. People have had their cases they won. Those included basically erased by pardons, and other cases they're working on erased by pardons. So you're seeing already a little bit of a brain drain from people who made their careers in multiple administrations, Republicans, Democrats, people with no politics who expected a certain sort of professionalism from these. They're leaving and I bring up D.C. because Ed Martin, the acting U.S. attorney, does not have their level of competence, has already struck out in a number of his projects, and is working with less talent on purpose because he wants some of those people out of the office.
Deepa, shifting our attention, you wrote about Elon Musk at the White House. That's not brand new. It's still new, but it's not brand new. What was brand new is turning the South Lawn into a Tesla mini dealership.
Yeah, add another $1 to the unprecedented jar on that one.
And one thing I want to do for context, so Tesla is still the most valuable auto company in the world, but in the heyday of post-election euphoria about Elon and Tesla and the incoming Trump administration, on December 17th, Tesla traded at $479.86. Today it closed at $240.68. JP Morgan this morning wrote, "We struggle to think of anything analogous in the history of the auto industry," meaning losing 48% of market cap in 3 months.
I mean, and this is to put it into further context, is Tesla sales are down in the U.S., they're down in China, in Australia, across Europe. This is a major problem for this company and for Elon Musk, who is a close ally of Donald Trump.
And it's brand identification, identification suffering.
That is not necessarily the president of the United States' problem. And so, again, to turn the White House South Lawn into a Tesla dealership of sorts, there were several cars brought in for the president to peruse. I reached out to the White House.
And the president extolling the virtues of them, saying he's going to buy one at market price?
The White House said this was a personal decision for the president, a personal purchase for the president. Fine. The president can go buy a car with the money that the president has. But, when you put something at the White House like this, that involves the White House press pool, right? Giving this event coverage that involves, free publicity for the Tesla brand and for Elon Musk, who remains the CEO.
Dave Weigel, a couple of things, as we inevitably do, because we have no other choice as political reporters and statisticians. Pete Buttigieg said he's not going to run for the Senate in Michigan. Governor Walz of Minnesota is heading to Iowa. I think those things are not unrelated. They're both presidential oriented to 2028.
Yeah, well, I talked to Walz's office today ahead of this tour, and they were more confident they could go to Iowa because it's not in the Democratic calendar. They knew that this would get that attention. But he was quiet after the election, started to speak out. And he, unlike Kamala Harris, has been very quiet, has given no indication she wants to run again, just not ruled it out, has done some mea culpas for how they ran the campaign, has criticized how they handled it. Would that feed into him running again? I'm not sure. They don't want that impression yet, but they are trying to tap into what Bernie Sanders, who's absolutely not running and has said he won't, already found, that he held rallies over the last few weeks in swing districts, I shouldn't say swing states, and had bigger crowds than they expected. And they always say we weren't expecting this crowd, but he was getting 8,000 people in a suburb of Michigan where he couldn't get that big of a crowd when he ran for president. And Democrats, any ambitious Democrats saying, I'm at least going to go out and see what the enthusiasm is. Maybe it's a wave washing me in. Maybe it's just a wave that anyone could ride.
And Deepa, real quickly, Pete Buttigieg's like, why would I bog myself down with a Senate race when I can look and orient myself to 2028?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so not ready to talk about 2028 yet.
Oh,
but
I
here we
sympathize.
are.
I so very sympathize.
And I will just add into the mix, like this is happening as Gavin Newsom is getting, interviewed
Very
by
podcasty.
Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. And there's just a whole range of things happening with Democrats. I don't think any of it, if you were an average Democratic voter, are you looking at any of these possibilities being like, wow, I have a lot of faith.
Wasn't on any Democrats bingo card in October, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Deepa Shivaram and Dave Weigel, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Thank you.